The diplomatic mass commander Talia Novak stared at the holographic display, her jaw tightening as she watched the Vreskin delegation depart the negotiation chamber. The aliens moved with a distinctive swagger, their scaled bodies glistening. Under the artificial light, each step radiating confidence bordering on arrogance. "Another successful compromise, Commander," remarked her aide Ensign Porter, with a hint of sarcasm. Talia sighed, brushing a strand of auburn hair from her face. "They took 3 mining stations in the Cygnus sector and gave us access rights. In return, the Terran Alliance Council sees this as a win." "And what do you see it as?" "Test," she replied, turning away from the display. "The Vreskins are pushing boundaries, seeing how far we'll bend before we break." The Vreskin Confederation had emerged as the dominant force in the galactic concord over the past decade. Their species possessed natural armor, enhanced strength, and a social structure built around territorial dominance. They'd been classified as a level 12 aggression species on the Concord's behavioral index. Humans, by contrast, were classified as level 3. Ambassador Nextral looked particularly pleased with himself, Porter noted, pulling up the ambassador's file. The Vreskin service record displayed an impressive list of diplomatic victories against various species. "He believes we gave in because we're afraid," Talia said, walking toward the viewport that overlooked New Geneva, the Terran diplomatic hub station. "The Vreskins misunderstand us fundamentally. They think we're weak." "Yes," she nodded. "And for now, that misconception serves us." A notification chimed, and Talia's wrist display illuminated. "The Council is calling. Probably want a debrief on the negotiations." Before she could accept the transmission, another alert flashed across her screen. Priority 1. She frowned, tapping the alert. Commander Novak, the voice of Admiral Stavros, filled the room. "We have a situation. The Helios mining outpost has been attacked. Preliminary reports suggest Vreskin involvement, though they're denying it." Talia's blood ran cold. "Casualties?" 17 dead, 32 wounded. The official story is that it was a rogue faction, not sanctioned by the Confederation. "That's convenient," she muttered. "What's our response?" "The Council has already issued a statement accepting their explanation and requesting reparations," the Admiral said, his frustration evident. "Protocol Theta remains in effect." Protocol Theta maintained the facade of diplomatic acquiescence. At all costs, the directive had been in place for 70 years, ever since humanity had joined the Galactic Concord. "Understood, Admiral." After ending the call, Talia stared silently at the stars. Porter approached cautiously, reading her expression. "They're testing our resolve more aggressively now," Porter said. "Yes," Talia agreed. "But they still don't understand what they're poking." Her personal terminal chimed, indicating an incoming private message. The sender was Krell, a mid-level Vreskon diplomat she'd met during previous negotiations. Unlike most of his kind, he seemed genuinely interested in understanding humans rather than simply outmaneuvering them. "Dinner tonight," the message read. "I wish to discuss the unfortunate incident at Helios." Talia considered declining. Fraternizing with a Vreskin after the attack felt wrong, but intelligence was intelligence, and Krell might reveal something useful. "Confirm for 2,000 hours," she told her AI assistant. Later that evening, as she prepared for dinner, Talia received a secure transmission from Earth Command. She input her authorization code, and a 3-dimensional blueprint materialized above her desk, the latest update on Project Prometheus, humanity's hidden arsenal. The weapons development had accelerated. The design before her could neutralize an entire battle fleet without leaving radiation or debris. Clean, efficient, devastating. Humanity had not fought a war amongst themselves in over a century, but they had never stopped preparing for one with others. The galaxy believed humans avoided conflict out of weakness. The truth was far more complex and far more dangerous. Talia closed the file and straightened her uniform. Tonight she would smile at Krell, engage in pleasant conversation, to maintain the illusion that humans were simple, peace-loving beings who shied away from confrontation. The diplomatic mask was becoming harder to wear, but wear it she wouldn't till the day came when it needed to be removed. Breaking Point Admiral Jorah Keegan's weathered face filled the secure holographic display in Talia's private quarters. His expression was grim, the lighting of his command center casting deep shadows across his features. "The situation has escalated, Commander," he said, without preamble. "Our intelligence indicates the Vreskins didn't just attack Helios. They stole prototype shielding technology." Talia leaned forward. "The quantum barrier system? The very same? In the wrong hands, particularly theirs, the implications are concerning." She processed this information, thoughts racing. The quantum barrier represented years of covert human research technology that could render conventional weapons useless. "What are my orders, Admiral?" "Authorizing a covert recovery operation. Lieutenant Darius Ward is being dispatched with a small team. He'll coordinate with you upon arrival." After the transmission ended, Talia sat in silence. The Terran Alliance had maintained its peaceful facade for generations, absorbing minor aggressions and territorial encroachments rather than revealing its true capabilities. But stealing advanced technology crossed a line. Her thoughts were interrupted by a gentle chime at her door. "Enter," she called. The door slid open to reveal Krell, his scaled body framed in the doorway. Unlike most Vreskins, his scales were a deep indigo rather than the typical bronze. His postures seemed less rigid than during their dinner the previous night. "Commander Novak, I hope I'm not intruding," he said, his voice a melodic rumble. "Not at all," she replied, quickly closing the classified files on her terminal. "Brings you here, Diplomat Krell?" He stepped inside, the door closing behind him. "I've been reflecting on our conversation regarding the Helios incident." Talia maintained a neutral expression. "The official explanation troubles me," Krell admitted, his scaled hands clasped before him. "I've accessed records that suggest the attack was not conducted by rogues but by special forces under direct command of High Marshal Drexfer." Talia's pulse quickened, but she kept her composure. "That's a serious accusation against your own government." "Yes," Krell agreed, moving closer. "And one I would not make without certainty. Confederation believes humans avoid conflict out of weakness. But I've studied your history. Your species once waged wars that devastated entire continents. Yet you chose peace." "People change," Talia said carefully. "Species evolve." "Indeed." Krell's eyes' vertical pupils surrounded by amber irises studied her intently. "Which is why I find myself conflicted. My duty is to my people, yet I cannot condone actions based on false assumptions and arrogance." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from Porter. Lieutenant Ward had arrived ahead of schedule. New understanding, the Concord Grand Chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from every member species packed the tiered seating, an unprecedented full assembly called in the wake of the Harvester defeat. Stood Admiral Keegan and Commander Talia Novak, prepared to address the gathering. For 7 decades, humanity has presented itself as a minor power. Admiral Keegan began, his voice carrying throughout the vast space. "We came to you in peace, seeking cooperation rather than confrontation. Some interpreted our diplomatic approach as weakness. Today we stand before you to explain our choices." Talia stepped forward. "Human history is marked by conflict. We achieved unity. Our wars cost millions of lives and nearly destroyed our world multiple times. When we developed faster-than-light travel and encountered other intelligent life, we faced a choice to bring our capacity for destruction to the stars or to try a different path." From her position, Talia could see Krell among the Vreskin delegation, his indigo scales standing out among his bronze counterparts. Beside him, High Marshal Drexver sat rigid with barely contained fury. "We chose peace," she continued. "Not because we were incapable of war, but because we understood its cost too well. We developed our defenses in secret, hoping never to need them." Drexver rose abruptly. "This admission confirms what many have suspected. Humanity has deceived the Concord, building weapons of mass destruction while pretending to be peaceful diplomats. How can any species trust them now?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through sections of the assembly. "With respect, Marshal," Talia countered, Building defenses is not the same as planning aggression. Had we wished to conquer, we could have done. So long ago, is that a threat, Commander? Drexfer challenged. It is a fact, she replied calmly. One that underscores our commitment to peace. Despite provocations, despite territorial encroachments, despite the attack on Helio Station, we chose restraint.
Oh.
Krell stood then, drawing surprised looks from his fellow Vreskins. I wish to address the assembly, he announced. The Concord speaker nodded permission. I've seen humanity's capabilities firsthand, Krell began. I have also seen their restraint. The Vreskin Confederation has repeatedly tested human patience, believing their diplomatic solutions indicated weakness. We were wrong, Drexfer hissed in displeasure, but Krell continued. The humans could have responded to our provocations with overwhelming force. Instead, they chose negotiation. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom. He looked directly at Talia. They understand something many of us have forgotten, that strength lies not just in the ability to destroy, but in the choice not to. The chamber fell silent as his words sank in. Over the following weeks, a new equilibrium began to emerge. Some species withdrew from human space, fearful of the newly revealed power. Others sought closer ties, recognizing the value of an ally that chose peace but could wage devastating war when necessary. The Vreskin Confederation, led by a new coalition that included Krell in a prominent position, signed the first truly equal treaty with the Terran Alliance. High Marshal Drexfer had been relieved of his command. Following revelations about the Helios attack and his planned conquest of human colonies, 6 months after the Harvester incident, Talia stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, watching ships from across the Concord move through the busy space lanes. Humanity's facade had been dropped, but their fundamental approach remained unchanged: cooperation over confrontation, diplomacy over dominance. She felt arms encircle her from behind and leaned back into Krell's embrace. The Xantari delegation has agreed to the Mutual Defense Pact, he murmured against her ear. That makes 12 species now allied with humanity, and the Vreskins, she asked, turning to face him. My people are still adjusting, Krell admitted. For generations, we defined ourselves by our martial prowess. Learning that the supposedly weak humans could defeat us effortlessly has been humbling. Talia reached up to trace the line of his jaw. Not defeat. Protect. There's a difference. Yes, he agreed, taking her hand in his. I believe many are beginning to understand that difference now. Beyond the viewport, a Terran defense ship moved in formation with a Vreskin cruiser at joint patrol that would have been unthinkable a year earlier. We still have much to learn from each other, Talia said softly. Krell's eyes, those striking amber orbs, met hers with warmth. The most important lesson has already been taught. True strength lies not in conquering others, but in mastering oneself. As they stood together, human and Vreskan, the stars beyond seemed to shine with new possibility. Humanity had revealed its capacity for destruction, but in doing so had created an opportunity for genuine understanding. The peaceful facade had been replaced by something more valuable: respect, built on truth. The real reason humans had avoided war was not weakness or fear, but the wisdom born of bitter experience. And now that wisdom was spreading throughout the stars, one ally at a time. Unleashed, the Vreskin battle fleet burned. What had begun as a coordinated attack against the Harvester vanguard had devolved into a desperate retreat as the enormous alien vessels absorbed conventional weapons fire without visible damage. High Marshal Drexfer's flagship listed heavily, its engines crippled by a Harvester energy beam. From the command deck of the Prometheus, Talia watched the tactical display with Admiral Keegan and Lieutenant Ward. The Vreskins have lost 40% of their combat vessels, Ward reported. At current attrition rates, they'll be completely destroyed within 20 minutes. Admiral Keegan nodded grimly. Deploy the fleet. Standard formation. And bring the Prometheus to full combat readiness. Throughout Concord space, hidden human warships emerged from stealth configurations. their advanced propulsion systems carrying them toward the battle at speeds that left observers stunned. The vessels bore little resemblance to the diplomatic and trading ships that had represented humanity for decades. These were weapons of war, sleek and purposeful. On the emergency Concord channel, expressions of shock and confusion flooded in from various species. "This is Admiral Jorah Keegan of the Terran Defense Fleet," the Admiral broadcast across all frequencies. "Rescon forces withdraw to Rally Point Delta. All civilian vessels clear the engagement zone immediately." Talia watched Drexfer's face appear on the communication screen, his scales ashen with shock and the strain of battle. "What is the meaning of this deception?" he demanded, even as his damaged flagship struggled to maintain position. "Not deception," Marshal Keegan replied. "Evenly preparation. Withdraw your forces if you wish them to survive." Pride warred with pragmatism on the Vreskin commander's face before he finally gave a curt nod. Vreskin fleet disengage and fall back. As the remaining Confederation ships retreated, the human fleet moved into formation around the Prometheus. Talia felt Krell's presence beside her, his expression a mixture of awe and concern. "Is it ready?" she asked Ward. "Yes, Commander. Dimensional disruptors at full capacity. The simulations predict 92% effectiveness against the Harvester hull composition." Admiral Keegan turned to Talia. "Commander Novak, as the architect of Project Prometheus, would you like to give the order?" Talia hesitated, feeling the weight of the moment. Humanity had concealed its military capabilities for generations, choosing diplomacy over displays of force. With this action, everything would change. "Prometheus, execute primary firing sequence," she commanded. The massive ship hummed as energy cascaded through its specialized systems. Rather than conventional weapons, the Prometheus utilized technology that operated on principles few species had even theorized about manipulating. The dimensional fabric that separated normal space from the subspace used for faster-than-light travel. When it fired, there was no dramatic beam or explosion. Instead, reality itself seemed to ripple around the lead harvester vessel. The massive ship shuddered, then began to collapse inward as its molecular structure lost cohesion. The spaces between atoms increasing until the entire vessel disintegrated into its component particles. "Target neutralized," Ward reported calmly. "Recalibrating for secondary targets." Throughout the battle, the human fleet demonstrated combat capabilities that left the observing Concord representatives speechless. Precision maneuvers, advanced shielding technology, and weapons of devastating effectiveness systematically dismantled the Harvester threat. In the aftermath, as the Terran fleet secured the system, Talia found herself alone with Krell in her quarters. "Your people have much to explain to the Concord," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "Yes," she agreed. "We do." "They will fear you now," Krell warned, moving closer to her. "Vreskins especially. Drexver will see this as confirmation that humanity has been planning conquest all along." Talia sighed, allowing herself to lean against him, finding comfort in his solid presence. "That was never our intention. We built these weapons hoping never to use them." Krell's arms encircled her, holding her close. "I believe you, but convincing. Others will be difficult." Their lips met again, more passionate this time, the tension of battle and revelation creating an urgency neither could deny. As they fell onto her bed, limbs entwined, Talia felt the boundaries between them, human and Vreskin, diplomat and warrior, dissolve in the heat of their connection. Later, as they lay together, Krell traced the line of her shoulder with gentle fingers. "What happens now?" he asked softly. "Now," Talia replied, "we build something new. Not based on misconceptions or fear, but on truth." On the display screen across the room, reports continued to flow in from across Concord space. The galaxy was reeling from the revelation of human military power. The peaceful, accommodating species that had bent to every diplomatic pressure had suddenly emerged as perhaps the most formidable force in known space. Everything had changed. And yet as Talia looked at Krell, she felt hope that something better might emerge from the ashes of pretense. Lieutenant Darius Ward was not what Talia expected. Rather than the hardened Special Forces operative she had imagined, He appeared disarmingly casual, with an easy smile and relaxed demeanor. Only his eyes sharp, constantly assessing betrayed his true nature. The mission parameters are simple, Ward explained during their secure briefing. Get in, recover the tech, get out. No casualties unless absolutely necessary. You make it sound easy, Talia remarked. That's the trick, Commander. Look harmless until you're not. He grinned, then grew serious. We've tracked the stolen tech to a research facility on Vreskin Prime. My team infiltrates tomorrow. The operation proceeded with precision. Ward's team, disguised as maintenance contractors, entered the facility without raising alarms. Talia monitored their progress remotely, tension building as they approached the laboratory housing the stolen technology. Then everything went wrong. Commander, we've been compromised. Ward's voice came through, unnervingly calm despite the tension. Alarm klaxons audible in the background. But we've discovered something else. Uploading data now. The files that appeared on her screen made Talia's blood run cold. Detailed plans for an assault on 3 major human colonies using human technology. Against them. The Vreskin Confederation wasn't just testing boundaries, they were preparing for conquest. Get your team out, Lieutenant, she ordered. Working on it, Ward replied tersely. Talia watched in horror as the facility's security cameras showed Ward's team pinned down by Vreskin guards. Against superior numbers, the humans moved with lethal efficiency, their combat training evident in every precise movement. What should have been a quick capture turned into a fighting retreat as Ward's team demonstrated why humanity's apparent pacifism was a choice, not a necessity. When Krell appeared at her door again that evening, his expression was solemn. You know, he said simply. Yes, Talia confirmed, stepping aside to let him enter. Your government is planning war. Not my government, Krell corrected. High Marshal Drexfer and his faction. They believe subjugating humanity would elevate the Confederation's status in the Concord. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Tension of a different sort filled the room. Why are you telling me this? Talia asked softly. Krell moved closer, the scent of him-like cedar and spice filling her senses. Because I believe there is more to your species than others understand. And because I find myself, drawn to you in ways I cannot explain. His scaled hand brushed against hers, surprisingly warm. The Vreskins are making a grave mistake, aren't they? Humans aren't weak. You're patient. Patience has its limits, Talia whispered, not pulling away from his touch. Their moment of connection was shattered by an emergency alert. On her display, message from Earth Command flashed red. Harvester ships. Detected at edge of Concord space. The galaxy was about to learn why humanity had chosen peace for so long. And what happened when that choice was taken away? Hidden arsenal, the Concord Emergency Council chamber hummed with panic. Representatives from 17 species argued over response strategies as holographic displays showed the advancing harvester. Fleet massive ships of unknown origin that had already consumed 2 uninhabited star systems, converting all matter into energy for their mysterious purposes. Talia stood beside Admiral Keegan, watching the Vreskin High Marshal Drexler posture before the assembly. The Confederation will lead the defense, the Marshal declared, his scales bristling with pride. Our warships are the most numerous and advanced in the Concord. Admiral Keegan exchanged a glance with Talia before stepping forward. The Terran Alliance offers our full support in this crisis, he said, his voice measured and calm. Though our military capabilities are modest, we stand with the Concord. Drexler barely acknowledged the human statement, continuing to detail the Vreskin battle strategy. Talia noticed Krell watching from the sidelines, his expression troubled. After the council meeting, she found him in a quiet observation deck, staring at the distant stars. Your admiral's humility was admirable, Krell said without turning, but perhaps misplaced given what's coming. Talia moved to stand beside him. The Vreskins truly believe they can defeat the Harvesters. Drexfer does. He sees this as an opportunity to cement Vreskin dominance. Krell finally looked at her, his amber eyes intense. But I've reviewed the preliminary data. The Harvester ships absorb direct energy weapon strikes without damage. The Confederation's strategy is flawed. I know, Talia said softly. Do you? Krell turned fully toward her. Or does humanity know something the rest of us don't? The moment of decision had arrived. Protocol Theta had served its purpose, but with an existential threat approaching, the time for facades had passed. "Come with me," she said. The secure briefing room aboard the Terran command ship Invictus was empty, save for Talia, Krell, and a holographic display of Earth's orbital defense grid. "This is impossible," Krell whispered, staring at the visualization. Of thousands of weapons platforms, stealth satellites, and automated defense systems surrounding humanity's homeworld. "Your military capacity is ... extensive," Talia finished for him. "What you're seeing is only 10% of our defensive capabilities." She expanded the display to show hidden shipyards throughout human space, each housing vessels far more advanced than the civilian and diplomatic ships the Concord had seen. "I don't understand," Krell said, his voice hushed. "If humans possess such power, why maintain the pretense of weakness? Why suffer the indignities imposed by species like mine?" Talia's fingers brushed against his scaled hand. "Human history is written in blood, Krell. We nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. When we achieved faster-than-light travel and encountered other intelligent life, we made a choice. We would be better than our past, but the weapons remained. Yes," she acknowledged, "we hoped never to use them. But we remembered what we are capable of, and we prepared not for conquest but for survival." The display shifted to show a unique vessel unlike any other in the human fleet. "The Prometheus," Talia explained. "Our answer to the harvesters." Krell studied the ship's specifications with growing amazement. "This technology, it's beyond anything in the Concord? How have you kept this hidden?" "A being underestimated," she said simply. "No one looks too closely at the quiet ones." Her eyes met, and Krell moved closer, his hand reaching up to touch her face with surprising gentleness. "I see you now, Talia Novak," he said softly. "Not just the diplomat, but the warrior beneath." Their lips met in a kiss that crossed species and expectations, tender yet urgent. When they parted, Talia felt a strange sense of relief. The burden of deception lifted, if only with one person. The moment was interrupted by Lieutenant Ward's arrival. "Commander," he said, pointedly ignoring their intimate proximity, "Earth Command has transmitted the authorization codes. Operation Prometheus is a go." Talia straightened, professional once more. "Thank you, Lieutenant." "At form, Admiral Keegan?" "I'll join him shortly." After Ward departed, she turned back to Krell. "What I've shown you cannot leave this room." "I understand," he said, taking her hand in his. "But what happens when the Concord witnesses humanity's true power?" "The Vreskins especially will see it as deception." "They will," she agreed. "Which is why I need your help when this is over. The galaxy needs to understand why we chose peace and why we now choose to fight." Their fingers intertwined. Human and Vreskinaz alarms began to sound throughout. The ship, the Harvester fleet, had entered the Concord's core systems. The time for hiding was over.